right, everyone, buckle up because today we are diving headfirst to the world of the paranormal.
And not just any paranormal stories, mind you.
Oh, no, not at all.
We're talking about real personal experiences.
The kind that make you want to sleep with the lights on, am I right?
Precisely.
And what's really got me hooked is that these stories aren't your typical campfire tales, passed down through generations.
Right.
These are fresh, first-hand accounts coming straight from a Spanish-language paranormal podcast I recently discovered.
Fascinating.
Oh, it is. Let me tell you, this episode had it all.
Oh.
Yeah. Comforting ghost stories, glitches in reality that make you question everything. Even a story that feels like a modern-day deal with the devil.
Intriguing.
But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's start with Amelia's encounter with, well, a rather helpful ghost.
Yes. Amelia's story.
It really makes you think about the afterlife, doesn't it?
It does.
Would you be comforted by seeing a deceased loved one, or would it terrify you?
It's a question that has intrigued humanity for centuries.
For sure.
To catch a glimpse of what lies beyond.
In Amelia's aunt's case, she initially felt a sense of peace, almost like her grandmother was watching over her.
A guardian of sorts.
Exactly. But as time went on, that comfort, it morphed into something else, something unsettling.
It can be a fine line, can it?
It really is, and it got to a point where the aunt actually sought ways to help the spirit move on.
Fascinating.
Right. It makes you wonder how long is too long for a spirit to linger.
Indeed. And what are the implications for both the living and the, shall we say, departed?
Absolutely.
This story highlights the diverse ways cultures view death and the afterlife.
That's so true.
Imagine a culture where ancestor spirits are celebrated, welcomed into the home.
Instead of feared.
Right, exactly. It challenges our preconceived notions of what constitutes paranormal.
I like that what we consider spooky might be completely normal in another culture.
Precisely.
Okay, so before we go too far down that rabbit hole, let's switch gears to Amelia's second story.
Right.
This one's a bit of a head-scratcher. It's about a misplaced T-shirt that, well, it just reappears.
A vanishing act.
You know those glitch in the Matrix moments?
I do.
Where you question if you're even in control of your own reality?
Absolutely. Those little occurrences that make you wonder if you've stepped into an alternate dimension.
Exactly. And in Amelia's story, there's no way this T-shirt could have been misplaced.
Oh.
The clothes drying on the line were washed the day before.
So where did it go?
Right. It's as if it just teleported for a bit.
A temporary glitch in the fabric of reality, perhaps.
Maybe. Have you ever experienced anything like that yourself?
I've certainly had my fair share of those wait what moments.
Me too. But let's move on to our last story for this part of our deep dive, and believe me, this one is a doozy.
Wow.
Zyra wrote in with an experience that, well, it sent shivers down my spine just reading it.
I'm intrigued.
It involves a dark entity, a mother's desperate attempt to help her daughter, and a pact that feels like something straight out of a horror movie.
A pact.
Yes, a pact. But I'm getting ahead of myself.
All right, let's start from the beginning then.
Okay, so Zyra's friend's mother decided to perform a cleansing ritual on her daughter.
A cleansing ritual. To what end?
Well, the daughter had been having these vivid, terrifying nightmares.
I see.
And the mother, she was just desperate to help her,
Understandable.
So she thought this ritual might alleviate the nightmares, but instead,
it
seemed to unleash a whole new level of creepy.
Unintended consequences.
Exactly. And that's when things took a very dark turn.
In what way?
Well, this entity, the one they inadvertently contacted through the ritual,
Yes.
it basically said, and I'm paraphrasing here, "Leave my daughter alone, and you can marry me instead."
Now that's a proposition I haven't heard before.
I know, right? Talk about a rock and a hard place.
It sounds like a scene from a dark fairy tale.
It really does. But the creepiest part, it worked.
It worked.
Well, at least for a little while.
What do you mean?
Zyra said that after the marriage, her friend and her mother, they experienced this insane streak of good luck.
Good luck. Like what?
I'm talking winning the lottery kind of luck.
Interesting.
It's like those old stories about wishing on a monkey's paw.
Be careful what you wish for.
Exactly. And as you can imagine, there were some seriously creepy consequences.
Consequences.
Oh, yeah. The entity started demanding more and more favors,
Favors.
And this feeling of unease, it just kept growing.
A classic case of the fine print coming back to haunt you.
Tell me about it.
It's a cautionary tale about unintended consequences.
And remember, Zaira is just an observer in all of this.
Right.
But even she felt so uncomfortable that she noped right out of there.
Smart move.
Especially after her friend casually mentioned that she had, and I quote, married another entity for similar benefits.
Married another entity.
Oh, yeah, and she was like, don't worry, my husband protects us.
That's chilling.
I know, right?
It's as if these entities operate within a complex web of influence.
And did I mention that right after Zaira left, she almost got hit by a black truck?
Really?
And remember how Zaira said her friend always dressed in black and red?
Yes, I believe you mentioned that.
It makes you wonder.
It does.
Were those just coincidences or...
Or something more.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
enough to make anyone think twice about messing with forces they don't understand.
For sure, but that's what makes these stories so compelling, isn't it?
It is, but it gets even creepier, believe it or not.
Oh.
Even after Zaira quit her job at the shop, you know, the one where her friend worked,
Yes.
she couldn't shake this feeling of unease, especially when she walked by the shop.
Like a lingering presence?
Yeah, that feeling of being watched.
Daily.
It really makes you think.
It does make one wonder about the true cost of such bargains.
And if that feeling of security, of good fortune, can it ever truly exist without repercussions?
Intriguing questions to ponder.
They really are.
The boundaries between our world and what lies beyond, they seem to be blurring.
Blurring indeed, and that's what we're going to explore further in part 2 of our deep dive into the paranormal.
I'm ready when you are.
It's like that old saying, you know, be careful what you wish for.
Indeed.
But in this case, it's not just a genie in a bottle. It's something far more, well...
Sinister.
Exactly. These stories really make you think twice about, you know, messing with forces beyond our understanding.
They do raise some interesting questions about the nature of such bargains.
They do.
And the potential consequences of seeking shortcuts or quick fixes.
It's like, what's the point of all that good luck if you're constantly looking over your shoulder?
Right, the present peace of mind.
Exactly. And let's not forget Zaira's friend's little comment about her husband protecting them.
Ah, yes, the web of influence widens.
It's like something out of, well, I don't even know. A horror movie, maybe?
It does make you wonder about the true nature of these entities.
And their motives.
Precisely, are they offering genuine help or setting a trap?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the fact that Zaira almost got hit by that black truck right after leaving her friend's place.
A coincidence?
Or a not-so-subtle warning from the entity? Who knows?
It's those little details that really stick with you.
They do. They really do. It makes you wonder, what would you do if you were in Zaira's shoes?
It's a tough one, isn't it? Faced with a similar situation, the desperation to protect someone you love.
Exactly. It's easy to judge from the outside, but in the heat of the moment.
We can never truly know how we'd react until we're faced with such a choice.
True that. True that.
But these stories serve as a powerful reminder.
Of what's out there?
Perhaps. Or at least a reminder to approach the unknown with a healthy dose of caution.
Absolutely. Because once you make a deal, especially with something you don't fully understand, well, there's no telling what the consequences might be.
A gamble with unpredictable outcomes.
Exactly. And sometimes those consequences, they linger long after you've tried to move on, like with Zaira and that feeling of being watched.
A haunting reminder.
It really makes you think twice about what's truly out there, doesn't it?
It does. And that's what we'll continue to explore in part 3 of our deep dive into the paranormal.
You know, it's like we're always looking for answers, for explanations.
We crave understanding.
Right. We want to make sense of the world around us.
But sometimes the answers we find only lead to more questions.
Exactly. And those questions, they can really stick with you.
They linger in the back of our minds, challenging our perceptions.
Like, after hearing these stories, especially Zaira's experience,
Intense?
yeah, it makes you wonder, what would you do if you were faced with that kind of choice?
A moral and existential dilemma.
It's easy to say, oh, I'd never make a deal with a dark entity. But in the moment, with so much at stake...
Desperate times, desperate measures.
Exactly. And who's to say what we'd consider a fair trade when faced with something we don't understand?
The boundaries of our beliefs are constantly tested.
They are. And sometimes those tests, they reveal more about ourselves than we ever expected.
Our capacity for both fear and resilience.
For sure. And those moments, those encounters with the unknown, they remind us that the world is a far stranger and more wondrous place than we often give it credit for.
A tapestry of experiences, beliefs, and interpretations.
It's humbling, isn't it?
It is, to acknowledge that our understanding of the universe is constantly evolving.
And that there's always more to learn, more to explore.
Precisely. The pursuit of knowledge and understanding is a journey without a final destination.
Well said. And on that note, we want to hear from you, our listeners.
Yes, share your stories.
Have you ever had an experience that made you question your own reality? A strange coincidence, an unexplainable encounter, or maybe even your own brush with the paranormal?
We're all ears.
We are, because sometimes it's those shared experiences that help us make sense of this strange and wonderful world we live in.
Indeed, our collective curiosity is what fuels these deep dives.
It is, so keep those stories coming, and until next time, stay curious, keep exploring, and remember, sometimes the most unsettling truths are the ones that make us question everything we thought we knew.